Hello and welcome to Gamer Girl ASMR. Now this week we're going to be doing something a bit different from what we usually do because I have some rants. I have a few rants I want to go on, and I know that might not quite be the vibe I usually have on this podcast, and I usually make sure that I talk a bit about things I really like too, but this time the podcast might just end up being full of rants. A lot of different rants. But before we do that, I want to talk about something I actually like, which is the game you're seeing right now. So this is the final part of Super Meat Boy. Now, it's a bit harder than the first part that I played in a previous episode, but it's still not impossible or anything. It's fun. I really enjoyed playing it for the podcast and when I played it too. And overall, I really like Super Meat Boy. Now, one thing that you might notice is that I don't really look at replays. I know a lot of people really like the replays, but for me, it's just that I've played the game for long enough that they're not really interesting anymore. So there's nothing fun to see the first time you complete the level, but once you know how the levels work, it's not really that interesting anymore, at least for me personally. So I'm sorry if anyone really wanted to see the replays, but I just don't like watching them personally myself. So the first rant I want to go on is about Kayan, because it turned out that I've been watching the wrong version of Kayan for a long time now. So I was watching Kayan and I thought I was watching the first 10 episodes. But it turns out that I was watching Kayan with 2 exclamation marks, not Kayan with 1 exclamation mark. So this brings me to my first rant. I actually don't mind because it was kinda cool to watch Kayan starting from season 2 because it was just a nice experience. It completely stands on its own, and I don't think this is a bad way to watch Kayan necessarily. It's just a bit convoluted, I guess. But yeah, this is the rant. I hate how... I don't hate, but rather I don't like the way that anime has these convoluted watch orders. You have to go through Hidamari sketch and then 365 and then Honeycomb. And if Kayan, the only difference between seasons is if they have 1 exclamation mark or 2 exclamation marks. Now, I get that this is unique and artsy, but this happens to so many anime. So every time I want to watch an anime, I've been conditioned to figure out what the watch order is just to prevent stuff like this from happening. With Kayan, I thought, hey, this is probably the full collection, right? Because it's I knew that the first season was 13 episodes and the torrent was 26 episodes. So I was like, okay, so this is just the first season, the second season. So I didn't think I needed to go on the trip to search for if there was any esoteric watching order for Kayan that I had to figure out, because I was like, okay, this seems like this is all of Kayan because it says Kayan on the title, it doesn't say season 2 or anything. It has 26 episodes. But it turned out that I was just watching season 2 of Kayan. Now, it's fine. Again, as I said before, I don't really mind that it happened. It's just dumb how you have to figure out what the viewing order is for any anime you watch. And it's so hard for me because I always want to watch things in the right order. So, I mean, I know chronological order is the right order, but then I have to look at Wikipedia articles, figure out exactly how the seasons went, and starting to watch any anime is always an ordeal for me because of it. Or because even if they have a conventional way to divide seasons, it's still there's always the risk that it doesn't have that, and it just goes into some weird obscure things that it wouldn't think of. So that's something that I don't really like. That's something I wanted to rant about because I feel kinda weird because I don't know, it's just weird. Anyway, the second thing I wanted to rant about was how bad Twitter is, because I've deleted my Twitter and my life is instantly improved so much. I'm not constantly feeling like I have to scroll a feed. The thing is, you think, hey, I'm gonna delete Twitter, but then I'm gonna keep scrolling Reddit or 4chan or any other social media platform. But what you realize is that all other social media platforms necessarily have a rate limit to how much content goes on them, right? So you can't really scroll Reddit forever, you can't really scroll Fortune forever, because every other platform knows how to make the discussion be relevant to some extent. Even though some methodologies are obviously worse than others, but no other website just wants you to just be bombarded with content. I guess, yeah. Even Facebook has the rate limiting thing where you're supposed to only really add your friends on it. So it's just Twitter that completely just bombs your mind with content that you don't even care about. And that's probably not even relevant to you, even if you curate your Twitter to just be people who you think that are relevant to you. You don't mostly post about the things that are relevant to you, you know. So no matter what you do, you get bombarded with this unfiltered content that's just based on FOMO and just trying to genuinely control your mind and get you used to the action of just constantly scrolling a feed. So I quit Twitter, and I still had the impulse to just keep scrolling and keep getting bombarded with information I don't care about. But then soon after I quit, I don't really scroll Reddit anymore, I don't really scroll Fortune anymore, I don't really do it on any site. And I also left a lot of Discord servers. That's also something you should do. It really helps to realize when software is starting to manipulate you. Because if Twitter, it was a really easy case of, hey, Twitter is trying to completely hack my brain, right? And anyone can realize it, except you only really realize the extent once you work up the courage to quit Twitter. But with Discord, there's this illusion that you're talking to people who are ostensibly friends with you. You talk in the same chat room, right? You're kind of friendly, so you must be friends. So if you leave a Discord server, you're gonna leave some friends behind. But what you soon realize is that these people really weren't friends. It was more you were just really personally engaged with a content creator, except the content they were creating were Discord posts. So leaving Discord servers is also good because it tries to trick your mind into thinking that you need to be on Discord and you need to be in all of these servers. But the best way for me to socialize is to just be friendly towards people and hope that if people want to talk to me, they're just going to be willing to just try to be friends with me, because that's just so much more productive than having a Discord server and people who you post in a Discord server with. So, yeah, I guess that's that trend. Just quit destructive social media. And I know this is a meme, oh, stop using Twitter, oh, stop doing that. And then the instinctive reaction is, no, I'm having fun with this. I'm seeing cute anime posts on Twitter. That's the only reason to use Twitter, is if you just want a constant stream of cute anime girls, because Twitter really is optimized for that. So if you want to see cute anime girls on Twitter, unfollow everyone who isn't posting cute anime girls, so you get to just look at the thing you're actually on Twitter for. You get to actually look at the cute anime girls. But if you're on Twitter reading about politics or whatever, please don't. It hurts you. It hurts everyone. It's bad. Twitter's a bad company and a bad website. So is Discord, but it has decent utility for creating group chats. So that's pretty cool. You get to have group chats on Discord. Because you get to have group chats elsewhere too, but the architecture just isn't really there anywhere else. It's mostly just on Discord where you can do it really conveniently and without many restrictions, at least. I also want to talk about breaking my e-reader where I was reading manga on, because this week I had the idea that I'm going to read Girls Last Tour, so I can have an entire section in the podcast about reading Girls Last Tour. So I was okay, I'm gonna start reading this on my e-reader. I pressed the power button. I pressed it slightly too hard and the screen broke. How ridiculous is that? You can break the screen of an e-reader by pressing the power button. That shouldn't happen. So I'm not talking about Girls Last Tour because I can't read manga on like a normal monitor. Now I am planning to get myself a vertical monitor, and then I'm going to go and read manga on that vertical monitor. And that's going to be nice because I can just like read manga on it, I can read books on it, and it's going to be really convenient overall. Especially because I'm on Linux now, and Linux actually has good PDF readers and good comic readers. Oh yeah, I already talked enough about Linux. I don't think I need to like really go off again when it comes to Linux, but that's also something that like is really good to do, is switching to Linux, because Linux is great. And yeah, it's just good. Anyway, yeah, my e-reader is now broken. The sad part is that I really didn't get to use it at all at any point, because I bought it, I think, it had to be like over 2 years ago, like exactly 2 years ago, and I wasn't really reading that much during that time. I haven't been reading that much in general, and the manga I was reading on my phone because the screen worked. But then I broke my phone, and then I stopped reading manga, and then I have this new phone, and I was reading manga for a while, but then I cracked the screen. So then I was like, okay, I'm gonna read finished manga on my e-reader, because that's pretty convenient, and I have an e-reader, and so I've started doing that, and now I broke my e-reader. So the only real solution is to get myself a vertical monitor for like all of my manga and stuff, so you don't have to really worry about breaking that, because it's a monitor. The only way I can really break it is if I move it. It's gonna be kinda cool to have a free monitor setup, because currently I have 2 monitors, and I'm not really gonna use the third monitor for things other than manga. But like, it's gonna be around, it's gonna be cool to have around, because it's I know it's gonna be fancy and stuff. It's gonna look nice. And if I want to, I can just store like notes on it, because I don't really have like a good space to store notes, because I want my notes to be vertical, because that's much easier to read. So I get to have like a nice vertical space for all of my notes, instead of having to like just give up like a third of a monitor. So that's gonna be nice. Too. I'm really looking forward to it. Another piece of technology that I really want to own is a ThinkPad, like an old ThinkPad, because I'm a Linux person now. And I have this idea of just installing Gentoo on my ThinkPad and just compiling it myself, and it's gonna be nice. Now I know it's just like a hipster Linux thing to do, is to have like a ThinkPad, compile Gentoo, but it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be like a really fun project for me. I'm pretty excited for it, because I really like Linux, and Gentoo seems like a cool piece of technology, especially when I have like an older piece of hardware that I might want to optimize a bit more than my desktop. Because my desktop, I don't really need to optimize. I'm currently running Arch Linux, but I should be running Manjaro if I really wanted to like just have the best user friendliness, because I don't really use any of these features of Arch that I wouldn't get from Manjaro. So I should just use Manjaro next time, but I don't need to reinstall my computer, so that's that. And I guess since this is the rant episode, I have another rant. I have actually multiple different rants I need to go on. But the first one is about Audacity on Arch Linux, because it's really, really weird how it just doesn't really work unless you fiddle with it. Because you have like this thing where it can record normal as long as it detects the microphone. Usually it detects a microphone, but sometimes it just decides that there is no microphone to detect, right? And so it's like, okay, you detect the microphone, that's the first part, that's the good part. And then, so you can use the microphone and the speakers at the same time. You have to like select the right audio output too, so you have to like fiddle around with all of the audio outputs too, so it's like, the software just doesn't really work on this machine, really. I mean, it works now that I fiddled with it, but it's kind of annoying how like obscure everything you need to do is, because I wish there was just like some way to detect like the right option. I wish Audacity had like that part of the protocol in the program, I guess. And And I know that Audacity is open source, so that's a protocol I could program into it, and if it's good enough, it could get accepted, but it's something that I don't really have the technical capabilities to do. So if I did have like the ability to program, I would try to figure something out, but sadly I really don't. So that's not really gonna be feasible for me personally, but it's a feature I wish there was, like in the program. Well, I guess it doesn't matter that much. Because the problem with Audacity is it's so much better than all of the competitors for doing anything simple. Like, as long as you're doing anything that's like relatively simple, nothing beats Audacity, because nothing else is anywhere close to being as simple as Audacity. So if you just want to record audio and you want to record multiple tracks of audio, you can't beat Audacity. It's impossible to do something that's like even close to living up to Audacity. So it's just like you kinda have to use Audacity. And the most frustrating part was actually the Audacity website, because every time you click on a link to the Audacity website from Google, it wants you to do a CAPTCHA, right? And instead of being like the normal default CAPTCHA, which can be like really annoying, but sometimes you get to only do like one CAPTCHA, as long as it isn't like the fading one that's just bad. Oh, I need to rant about CAPTCHAs too. But like the Audacity website always needs you to do two CAPTCHAs. You also, like, to access the website at all, you have to do two CAPTCHAs, which is just insane. Why would you need that? Why is that necessary? But yeah, anyway, I want to rant about CAPTCHAs and how they're actually psychological warfare. Now, the Audacity website seems to have like a type of CAPTCHA that doesn't do this, because no matter if I get things wrong or right or whatever, it always lets me in, because it does like what a CAPTCHA is actually supposed to do, which is like check if you're human from the way you click things, not like from like what you choose, right? So it's pretty good at that, because it always let me in. Now the normal CAPTCHAs, right? You can be like, oh, but there are pictures, you're supposed to like identify the pictures, which is like not really. Like, how well you identify the pictures doesn't really have that much to do with, like, what the CAPTCHA is trying to prove, right? So that's why sometimes you can get everything completely right. You can be sure that you got, like, everything just completely right. And the CAPTCHA just doesn't let you in. And sometimes you can misclick and get things wrong, and the CAPTCHA lets you in, you know? Because it's not really tied to what you chose. It's not really tied to, like, any test of skill. It's just tied to, like, whether you seem human to it. So it's just like it's psychological warfare, because if you've ever been in a situation where you have to do a lot of CAPTCHAs in a row, like I've been in that situation once where I just had to do like a bunch of CAPTCHAs in a row, because I was editing a wiki that didn't really have like the privileges to like freely edit at that point. And so I just had like a bunch of CAPTCHAs in a row, so I had to like solve like few hundred CAPTCHAs in a day, I think, something insane like that. So that was just like, okay, I'm doing all of these CAPTCHAs, right? I'm doing all of these CAPTCHAs, and what it turned out to be was like, it's actually torture, because you can get everything completely right, and the CAPTCHA can just be like, hey, your answers are wrong. When your answers aren't wrong, it just doesn't think you're human, because it's a bad algorithm, right? I can say, hey, your answers are wrong, so you're not gonna be allowed into this website. And it's so bad, it's genuinely torture. Like, CAPTCHA should be illegal. Like, this isn't a joke. Like, they're like genuinely just lying to you, which is just not good at all. I don't like that CAPTCHAs are allowed to exist in this form, and very few people talk about this too, even though it's like such a integral part of everyone's lives, and it's like so ridiculously unethical. So yeah, everything should switch to HCAPTCHA, which is what the Audacity website uses, because I'm currently reading its website. Like, if you didn't notice, I took like a really sneaky cut there, because I was like genuinely interested in like the CAPTCHA alternatives. So HCAPTCHA is completely free and open source, and it respects humans. I mean, I don't know if it's Libre, but I know it's like free and open source. At least it seems like it is. I'm not quite sure too, but maybe it isn't, maybe it isn't. Who knows? I'm not gonna research it that deeply. But it's like so much less frustrating because it never gave me like an answer that I wasn't a human, And it's like built around like a much better philosophy than than the original CAPTCHA that's developed by Google, by the way. Like Google has like a psychological warfare plan against you personally. If you don't have enough reasons to hate Google without that, but just so you know. Okay, so I went on to read some more about CAPTCHAs and I discovered the most dystopian like version of it yet, which is a CAPTCHA that's a logic puzzle, and it's hard for humans but easy for robots. So the only way to get the CAPTCHA right is to fail that logic puzzle, and that's the most dystopian thing ever. That's awful, that's terrible. I mean, it's not practical in any way, but like, it's just bad. So, I have some more rants. The first one I want to go on is about how that guy with the glasses completely ruined the internet. Like, that guy with the glasses ruined an entire generation of men because, like, the reviewing philosophies that grew out of that website and that culture in general are just, like, the worst, That's like, if you think about, like, how cinema scenes could, like, have its format, that's entirely because, like, that type of thing was innovated by that guy with the glasses people, where they just like thought that the best way to criticize like or review a piece of media was to just like relentlessly pick it apart and like somehow try to demonstrate which parts are good and which parts are bad without like considering anything or any nuance or context or like who this piece of media was made for, why this was made. So they just go like, hey, like, I'm like a white 25-year-old guy in my bedroom. I'm talking about these things, and obviously my thoughts and opinions are going to be relevant because I can, like, objectively analyze this. I can be like, hey, look at all of these bad things. It uses cinematography that isn't, like, up to, like, the standards I think it should be. Or, hey, this is, like, a plot hole somewhere. It's just, like, the most annoying kind of people, who like watch like a movie and try to find plot holes, like I can't understand how anyone could be like that kind of a person, because like what do you get when you find a plot hole? Do you get like a reward or something? You don't. Like, the only thing you get when you find a plot hole is you get like mad at the movie or something. Like you didn't outsmart it or anything either, because there's like a definite chance that the people who made the movie knew that it existed, right? I guess that's like ultimately the part of it that's the most annoying, because like they assume that they know better than the people who actually make art. Like they don't go like, hey, I'm a reviewer, my like role here is to review media. They more just go like, hey, I know better than like the people who made this like art. So I'm just gonna explain it to them. I'm gonna explain art to the people who made it, right? So I'm gonna be like, hey, here's a plot hole. Here's something you did wrong. Here's something else you did wrong. And most of the time that's something that the person would be aware of, except it's something that like is probably either intentional or like a compromise to tell a better story. Because movies aren't about like getting everything right. Movies aren't about like getting like everything precisely correct in the way that like they should be, because that's not the point of a movie. The point of a movie is to tell a good story, so, and to have a good imagery, I guess. So if you're gonna sacrifice like some weird autistic notion of having everything be like consistent and avoiding plot holes for no actual practical reason, and you just want to tell a good story, then these types of people just go like, hey, you can't just tell a good story, you have to like abide by these completely meaningless standards that don't even like help you make a good movie. Like none of these standards help you make a good movie. All that they do is like serve as basically just cudgels to just call things bad for no reason. So it's the most annoying thing, and especially when it comes to like things like music, right? There's like this entire music review culture born out of it, which which I know like the actual that guy of the class's music reviewer, like Todd in the Shadows, doesn't really do this, so I'm not gonna hold him culpable or anything, because he actually makes decent enough content, but you can like see the philosophy influence him. Like, if you're paying attention to his videos, you can see like the moments in which like the prevailing philosophy like so obviously influenced him, and it's just sad because he has good taste, right? He has good takes usually, but then it's just like, hey, like, it's just you can see like the corrupting influence. You can see the tendrils creeping up on him. So it's like, hey, like, music is now serious business. You can't like music that isn't serious business, right? You can't. Like, One Direction is bad because teenage girls like it, and teenage girls aren't serious business. Like, all of this rap that's like made for like Southern black people by Southern black people is bad because it's not serious business, because like they don't really want serious business, I guess. It's just so frustrating. It's just so incredibly frustrating, because music is like this happens in multiple places too. Like this culture has spread throughout the internet, or I guess maybe the internet just facilitated the culture that like already existed offline, where just people go like, hey, music is serious business. Like, this music is produced bad. You need to care about the production quality of your music, when that's like the least relevant part of music. Like, sure, if you have like a good composition, it's gonna sound better when it's well produced on top of being like good composition, but that's like the final thing you should care about. That's like the last thing that like is necessary for a piece of music to be good. So if you just go like, hey, I'm gonna make a piece of music good by like having high production value, that doesn't work. Like, you can look at Uncle Adams for proof that it doesn't work. You know, Uncle Adams has high production value, but his music is bad. Not because he's like, oh, quote unquote untalented or anything, but because he's not really making music for anyone to listen to. He's just making music because he has an idea that he's going to make it if he just like uses production value, because like this entire culture is just so fixated on production value. Like, this is the worst of YouTube. This is the worst of all of like small YouTuber communities. Like, I've talked about these people before, because I think like in my videos, but because I just think there's like that's the smallest not smallest. I think that's like one of the most destructive mentalities anyone could have, is like the small YouTuber mentality, where it's just like, hey, how can I up the production value of my videos? How can I make my videos have better SEO and better thumbnails and all that, when like none of that really matters. None of that really matters if your videos are bad, right? The production value is just there if you're like already like established and you want to like step things up a notch for your own like artistic fulfillment, I guess. Because like YouTube doesn't need production value. YouTube doesn't even gain from production value. Like, some of the most popular people on YouTube don't have any because they don't need any, because it doesn't really enhance your content unless you're doing something that inherently relies on production value, I guess, like making movies or something. It's like the traditional mentality where it's like, hey, you have like these big budget productions which are just better, like everyone's going to like watch them because they're just good. It's like the old Hollywood mentality. You might be able to like trace all of this back to like the start of the 20th century, when like Hollywood and the music industry were like just starting to just take off and like consume the entire world. Because the way that large companies could market themselves over like smaller producers was like, hey, the only way you can make a movie, the only way you can really record music is if you have like this like entire small like entire like large project behind you, right? So when that stopped being true, they could still like use that like established position they had, which was like, hey, our quality is just so much better than everyone else's quality, right? And that worked until like the start of the like OOs, I guess. And that stopped being true though. That stopped being true because like at that point it's like, hey, everyone can make like things look nice and things sound like nice, so you don't need like a big studio to like make anything really. So it was like, okay, so they say that you don't need a big studio to make anything. Oh, well, we have visual effects. We have better visual effects than you. Soon that won't be true either. Soon everyone will be able to do like visual effects that are like really good and like convincing, I guess. So it's all just like there's gonna be like some other gimmick at that point. It's gonna be like, hey, we're gonna have like smells in our movies. You can't have smells in your movies if you're like indie or something like that. It's just gonna have like another ridiculous way that you can like promote the mentality of like some big budget productions, because it's just the way it goes. So that just mentality has been like put on YouTube, I guess, where it's like, hey, I'm gonna be a YouTuber, and the way to be good at art is to have like high production value. So I'm just gonna make bad videos with high production value, and they're gonna be good videos. And it's just a mentality I hate. But yeah, this like I have to get to my final point in this tangent, where this created like a really, really like cancerous video game review culture too, where it's like, it's not like the IGN reviews that are just trying to give like a good recommendation for a consumer, right? Because there's some value in being like, hey, is this game worth your money? Because games, like, maybe like for some people they're not like an investment. Just I'm just gonna drop $60 in a game, but games really kind of are an investment if you're buying a AAA game for $60. Like, that's an investment you make into a game, and you want that to provide you with like enough value for your money. So it's like, okay, I paid all this money for a game, and I don't know if it's good, so you need a review that tells you, hey, is this game like basically competent? Does it feel nice? Does it like have good gameplay and all that? So I get why I would like an IGN type review, where it's just like, hey, what role does a game serve for a consumer? But then there's that entire like that guy of the classes type like game reviewers that are just like, all of these mistakes within games or whatever make me angry. All of these mistakes make me angry. These games make me angry because like, look at how bad this specific thing is. When like that specific thing might not even be bad. It might not even be bad. It might just be a choice that the game designers made. And it might be bad, it might be bad. Like, I'm not gonna say that all of them are like bad reviewers and they don't know what's good or bad. But like, all of them just assume that they know game design better than game designers. So they just critique the game design based on like nothing other than what they think a game should be like. So they go like, hey, this thing is bad, that thing is good. And it's overall just like really destructive in my opinion. I don't think games should be reviewed like that. I don't think that degree of arrogance is really good for anyone. There's like an entire tangent I could go. Like, actually, I'm gonna go on the tangent right now. Like, overall, I don't really personally value video game reviews because I'm not a gamer. I'm not gonna buy most games. I'm only gonna buy really specific games, and I know what type of game I like. So I know if that game is of that like specific type, I will like buy it and I will like it. So I don't really need reviews for anything because I already can tell what I would like and I can tell what I would dislike. So I don't really have to think too much about that. But like, then there's the thing where if I want someone to talk about games, I want them to talk about like what experience they had with games and like what emotions they had with games and so on. Like, this is why I think Joseph Anderson is the perfect video game reviewer. Because for people like me, he talks a lot about his own experiences and emotions with games. And that's like something that I'm like really interested in. But he also like really knows how game design works. Like, and he doesn't explain the game design to like the game designers. He just explains why he thinks the game design either works or doesn't. He doesn't like make any like value judgments about it usually. He just says whether or not it works or doesn't, and that's good enough. Now, one thing that Joseph Anderson has done that I don't really like is like his take on the crab water in Hollow Knight. I think is bad, but I don't really mind that too much. It made for a good point in the video because his own interpretation and his own experience. So that's all good. But yeah, he just has good takes. He just has good taste. He knows what he's talking about. He doesn't try to be like some person who knows better about games than a game designer would. And just, I know, just he's a perfect game reviewer. But like, I'm willing to sit through like an hour of people just talking about why they like a specific game, without like any attempt to like convey like something that other people would find relevant to their own experience with the game. Like, I think that's valuable for me personally, because I just want to hear people talk about games. I don't need to hear people like telling me why I should care about the game, because like chances are I won't care about the game. So yeah, that's an entire tangent, and I feel like I'm flowing. So I want to talk about my newest project, which is a light novel. I'm writing a light novel. It's about cute girls whose hobby is Linux. Like, their hobby is like installing Linux, managing Linux, reading about Linux. And they're like cute Japanese high school girls, and all they do is Linux. So this is my current project that I'm working on. I'm working on multiple projects right now, actually, and all of them are like somewhat large, I guess. They require effort. But, and you might see like a lot of really cool content come to my channel in like the next few weeks, because I'm making some cool stuff, or at least I would like to think there's some cool stuff. It might not necessarily be, but it's not really up to me to decide whether or not something I make is cool. It's up like to the people who are like actually watching it. But yeah, I'm writing this light novel, and it's been really fun to write, because I can just basically like rant about Linux. It's just my own personal autism in light novel form, and I really like writing it. I really like how it's been turning out, and I hope other people like it too. So I have one last topic written down, and like half of these topics were just something I like went on a tangent about. But I have one last topic that I haven't gone on a tangent about, which is the fact that like a lot of people try to attribute social views to like quote unquote the regime, like the media, the government, all of that. Like, so people just go like, hey, the education system, the government, the media all have like this agenda. They have like the liberal SJW agenda, they have like the racist agenda, they have the white supremacist agenda. A lot of people like pretending that like these institutions have like these like ideological nefarious agendas. And I think the thing that's like really vital to understand is that they don't really have any of that. Like, the only agenda they have is to like propagate themselves, because it's really just wrong to view them as like some sort of like invading disease, I guess. It's like, hey, we have like this healthy society, and then all of these institutions are like invading it with like I don't know, some coronavirus, let's say. We're just like, the government and the media and the education system are like coronavirus. They get in your lungs, right? They fuck you up. And that's their goal, basically, is to just reproduce by hijacking your cells to produce their own cells, you know? That's like an easy way to like look at it, because like that conforms to like simplistic narrativistic thinking, which is something that I've like found myself resist more and more, which is like, things don't really have narratives, and a lot of people, like, this is something I saw yesterday that kinda pissed me off, which was like, hey, live your life like you're going for a good ending, when the thing is, there's no like good ending to your life. There's no like specific point in your life where it's like, hey, this is the ending now, this is the good ending, this is the bad ending. Like, you can't really make choices like that. You can only decide, hey, what choice would I make that's like good for right now, because you can't, or for the future, depending on like the time frame you care about, because there's like no narrative to anyone's life, even though people might try to like construct a narrative where like they just put disjointed events together and just like imagine a sense of progression, when in reality that doesn't really exist. Like, narratives only exist because humans need narratives to think. which is why humans narrativize like everything they can, because it's just an inherent like need we have to like just put things in the form of like narratives. So when it comes to like human society, you shouldn't be thinking about things in the like terms of narratives. You shouldn't be like, hey, the way to deal with the government is to like criticize it and be like, hey, we need to like use antiviral therapy to get rid of the coronavirus. We need to find out like the right antivirals to treat coronavirus. Because that's not the way that the government works. I mean, that's not the way coronavirus works either, but it's a way that coronavirus could work. I mean, a better example would be like malaria, I guess. Like, hey, malaria used to be like this giant problem, but now we have like ways to treat malaria. So it's like, or AIDS too. Like AIDS was this like giant like problem virus, but now you have like HIV. You can have like the right antiviral treatment and not have your life too affected. So it's like all of this stuff that you can look at these problems and you can look at like the antiviral solution and you can go like, okay, so this is the way to like make the problem better, so that's the way that we should approach it. The government, the media, the education system is more like a cancer. And I know this too is narrativistic thinking, but it's not like that the cancer has like a desire to attack you. Rather, a cancer only has the desire to self-propagate. The only thing a cancer wants to do is replicate its cells. So what the government does, it just replicates its own cells. What the media does, it just replicates its own cells. What the education system does is the same thing. They don't hijack anyone else's cells. They don't hijack your cells, but they just put their own cells within like the larger system, which causes the larger system to break down because it's not supposed to have all of these cells in it, right? It's not supposed to have like all of these cells spread throughout the system. So it's easy to be like, hey, what's the antiviral solution to all of this? We can criticize, like if you're like a right winger, you can be like, we can criticize all of these like organizations for being like SJWs and having like a liberal agenda. Like Google has a liberal agenda, Facebook has a liberal agenda, Twitter has a liberal agenda. Like you can go for that approach, but it's not really productive. Or you can be like an anti-racist person, which is just like a normal person or whatever. But I mean like specific like a movement anti-racist person. You know the type of people I'm talking about. Like not just people who are against racism, but rather like their entire like identity is being against racism. Now I'm not saying that like if you're like black and your entire identity is, hey, I don't want to be like discriminated against because I'm black, like that's fair. I'm talking more about like people who just go like, hey, I've never faced discrimination. I might either be like rich, I might be white, I might be any of these things, but my entire identity is like anti-racist activism, because like that was like, okay, I'm gonna explain it to you exactly right now. Another tangent. Like, do you ever think about why everyone has like such a large desire to be like anti-racist activists now? Why does everyone want to be like an oppressed race? Why does everyone want to be like an anti-racist activist? It's also because of like narrative thinking. Because to be a revolutionary back in like the 60s or 70s or even the 80s meant to be an anti-racist activist, right? Because at that point there was like an unimaginable amount of like discrimination against black people. I can go like, hey, it's completely imaginable, right? People live through it, like they can talk about it, so obviously you can imagine it, but it's more like if you've never lived it, you can't really comprehend it. Like you can't really compare it to the current system because it's such a different magnitude. So if you were a revolutionary, that was like the most obvious and blatantly wrong thing you can criticize. The same with when you were like a revolutionary in the late 19th century or like the early 20th century. You had to be a feminist, right? You had to be a feminist to be a revolutionary. Because what being a revolutionary meant was you look at like the most obvious thing in society to criticize. And you went like, hey, I'm a feminist. There's this like massive, like degree of oppression. You'd go like, hey, I'm a revolutionary, I'm anti-racist. There's like that massive degree of oppression throughout different time periods. So current revolutionaries like look around and see, what's an obvious thing to criticize? Capitalism. Okay, we can be against capitalism. That's how we can be revolutionaries, right? But then these revolutionaries like are also not like principled in that way. They don't really care about capitalism. They just think that like Jeff Bezos is really ugly. They don't like that the like most powerful person in the world is really ugly, right? They don't like that. They think that that's like a really bad thing. They think that like a hot black woman should be the most powerful person in the world. They think like a hot Hispanic woman should be the most powerful person in the world. So they go like, so let's replace like the most powerful person in the world with like some social democracy type shit, because then we can have like a hot Latina woman be like the most powerful person in the world, because we're just gonna make an economy that can be like headed by a figurehead. Like I know like a lot of them like the narrative, we want an economy for the people, but then they also have like this cult around Bernie Sanders, where Bernie Sanders will fix everything. Bernie Sanders will like do this and that, or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will fix everything. She will do this and that, right? So I just go like, hey, we're just gonna have like this entire like thing that's like, hey, we're gonna create like this entire thing where we're just gonna like have like a figurehead regulate the economy and make it work for the people and defeat the ugly capitalist Jeff Bezos, who's ugly and whose face looks bad and they don't like him, right? So yeah, that's why they go like, okay, so now that we have established this, like we still don't have principles. We have like a plan of action, we have a critique, but we need to demonstrate that we have principles. So instead of looking for something that's like slightly under the surface, like some form of discrimination that's not quite obvious enough for them to grasp, like the closest thing is like trans rights, right? Because gay rights, if you're a revolutionary in the 90s or the 00s, right, gay rights were the thing that you cared the most about. But now again, you can't really like, gay people don't like, I know you can be like, okay, people are still oppressed, but if you're just like white and gay and upper class, you don't have any issues. You're not oppressed like at all. there's like no real, I mean, unless you're like upper class in like a really homophobic environment, which obviously in which case that's still bad. Like, but that's usually tied to being a minor. And that's another oppressed class. It's not that you're oppressed for being gay. You're oppressed for being, in the eyes of the law, like underage, right? So that's an entirely other topic. So that's not like you can be like that. Oh, the axis of oppression is that you're gay, but I disagree with that assessment personally. But yeah, anyway, like, so like the most obvious thing that people can go is like, hey, trans people, they're kind of suffering right now. There are kind of some bad things happening to trans people that shouldn't happen, and they can go like, okay, I'm a revolutionary. I care about trans rights, but like that's again like not enough for a platform. So they have to create like this entire identity where it's like, we need like a coherent revolutionary platform. We can't really like admit that the world is already structured in like through the struggles of past revolutionaries. We need to get like a position where we can still get credit. They still want credit. They can't be like, hey, past revolutionaries accomplished all of these great things, and it is our duty to like advance them and maintain them. They can't have that degree of humility. They have to be like, hey, I'm a revolutionary in the current day, and they have to go through like the same struggles. I have to criticize like racism and sexism and homophobia. I have to create an entire identity where this is all I criticize. But that will inevitably turn into like just fake struggles, not struggles that aren't even real in a lot of places. So you can be like a white person, like being like, oh, I stand with black people, I stand against police brutality, and police brutality is obviously bad, and black people suffer more from it than white people. That's something you can observe now. If you're a racist, you can say black people deserve to struggle more from police brutality, but I don't think anyone can really say that they don't. So what you can do is you can be like, well, I'm gonna take like this niche issue, and instead of criticizing the police and the institution of police, because I'm not a real revolutionary, I'm gonna criticize police being racist, because that's an axis through which I can act like a revolutionary. Because they don't really care about the fact that the police are inherently bad. They don't care about the fact that the police are inherently bad. They just care about the fact that the police are racist. So they can just like appropriate past struggles in like contexts that really don't like fit into them. Like that's the entire same thing with like sexism in video game communities. Like girls don't want to play video games because people are sexist. Now this to an extent is true, but it's not that the people who are sexist are the gamers. It's not like that the gamers are sexist. It's more like that again, parents are sexist, right? Other women are sexist and don't want women to play video games. It's there's not a culture of video games like for women, like among other women, among their parents, right? And that's like where the sexism is. Sexism isn't that men are mean to women online. Now that's annoying. Obviously, I'm not gonna say it's like not annoying, but like you can't really place like all of the sexism on just people who are like making games and playing them for like their own enjoyment. And again, like it can be like, oh, you should be nicer to women in games because then we get more women in games. But like that's not how it works. You need to build an entire culture where women like can play games without shame, and women can play games, and so on and so on. So yeah, so if you're this kind of like revolutionary LARPing type, and you just want to be like, oh hey, the system is like racist and sexist and homophobic, and like that's what the system is. Like that's not how it works. Now this is entirely inspired by like a response I had in the comments of a No Thank You video where he was like, I know some person, they were like, you can't actually really say that like because I was talking about how ugly people are being discriminated against and so on, and this person was like, hey, you say all of these things, like you say that like black liberation can be marketed in like an attractive person, and gay liberation can be marketed in like an attractive person, and they were like, hey, you say that all of these things can be marketed on attractive people, but you have to realize that what we think is attractive is based on like the social conditions of the regime. And the regime doesn't think that black people or gay people are attractive. Like the media doesn't think that, and none of these like corporations think that. So even though this might be like somewhat true, it's not really that accurate. And he didn't even disagree with me. Like, and I think his point is valid. Like the regime doesn't think that these types of people are attractive, because the regime doesn't think any kinds of people are attractive. You can be like, hey, there's like this supermodel ideal that's like the white skinny girl or whatever, but that's not true. That hasn't been true for a while now. The ideal right now, whether you like it or not, is like features that are, you can say, are appropriated from black and brown women. You can say that that's the ideal. Like the ideal is like curvy, thick, like that kind of woman is like the ideal in the media right now. So, and those are features that are most associated with like black women and like brown women, right? So you can say that that's inherently objectifying and racist, and I would not disagree with that. But like the institutions like realize that that's the most marketable way to like approach things. So you can easily market black liberation by just taking like attractive black women, and black men are also considered to be like widely attractive as long as they're like conformed like the other ideals of attractiveness. Like they're not considered to be attractive. They're not like these like objectified large muscular men with huge penises, right? If they don't fit that criteria, they're not considered attractive. But like the common conception, like you can say it's a racist conception, you wouldn't be wrong, of black men and black women, like they're considered to be fairly attractive in current day society. So you can just market black liberation through all of these like really attractive icons, like some of the most attractive men and women like in popular culture are like black rappers, right? And other like black athletes too. So it's again, like you can still say like the acting world considers white people to be the pinnacle of attractiveness, and that wouldn't be wrong. But again, you have to like realize the larger social ramifications of everything, because people realize that you can market all of these things, so they can. If I wanted to be like a really cringe like leftist type person, I could just go like, oh, they're like deconstructing the black body to commodify it or whatever. Like I'm saying, like marketing agencies like see things that could be marketed, like through like the current social groups, and go like, hey, we're gonna market that. The same goes with like gay people and lesbians, right? Because lesbians have always been thought of as like an attractive group, because men just have like this idea that two women are attractive. I like when two women kiss. That's hot. Like that's as simplistic as it is. Except now in the mainstream, there's also like that sort of conception of gay men, which is like gay men are just like hot and glamorous, right? Gay men take care of themselves. Gay men look attractive. So we should just have like gay men, like we should package gay men as something attractive to look for, right? So it can be like, hey, we can like objectify gay women and gay men, and we can create like, we can market that in like these attractive people. Because again, like all of these institutions are a cancer. All of these institutions just want to self-replicate, and they can see like, hey, here's a marketing demographic. Here's a part of society. Here's a part of society that I want to like use for my own ends. So they just reproduce themselves. They like appropriate that culture. They appropriate that like part of society, and then they sell it forward. Right? That's the way they like sustain themselves. So they just take all of these things. So what this means is that these organizations are both like, they're white supremacists, they're racists, right? They promote white people because you can market some aspects of white supremacy, you can market some aspects of racism. There's a demographic in society that's white supremacist, and there's a demographic in society that's racist, right? And you can see, oh, that's like, oh, Southern Hicks. No, that isn't Southern Hicks. That's like your average fucking white mom in like any, or white dad or anything. Your white fucking Gen Xer. I guess that's what I meant to say. You're like white Gen X liberal in like California or New York or anywhere. Like that person is probably thoroughly racist and white supremacist, even if they would never like admit it. Like there's like the entire Karen meme, because like it's like people like to be like, oh, women ruin fun, and they're like white old women, they ruin our fun, so that's a Karen. But like, whatever, it doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna finish this topic. Fuck it, I'm gonna take another tangent, even though I don't have that much time left on the podcast. Like, I hate the entire idea that women ruin fun, and women can't have fun, and women aren't like hip and with the kids, because like it assumes that women have to participate in like this specific culture that people like value, like women as a social group, because women are just a social group. It doesn't really mean anything else. It says like this social group has to participate in like the trends of this other social group. Now what should happen is there shouldn't be any social groups, and we shouldn't have like these like things. But like right now the thing is like women should participate in like these memes, or women should participate in these like fun things, and women don't understand these fun things, and it's it's not really relevant to anyone. Like, oh, like when men get angry at people, they're not gonna get filmed because they're probably like acting violently, you know, because that's how sex hormones work. But I have that tension to side. It's just women are easy to like. Women are just easy to demonize because they're not going to be like violent towards you. They're probably gonna get like men to be violent towards you, if anything. It's like that's like the entire current thing. Like women just like want men to be violent towards other people, I guess. But yeah, wait, I kind of forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, so these people are racist, so you can package racism to them. You can like sell fear that these black people are dangerous towards you. You know, you can sell fear to these people, and it just just sad because it's not like the media is in itself white supremacy. The media just recognizes what it can sell. So does the government, because the government, like, you might be like, oh, the government is like this special organization above society, but no, the government is just another entity that has to market itself. And the government is another entity that has to like try to get like public legitimacy. So it's like all of these entities, sure, they're white supremacists, but that's because like they can propagate themselves by being white supremacists. They don't really impose white supremacy on people. They just capitalize on it, on like what exists. And the same way they're like SJW, liberal agenda people, you know, because you can also capitalize on that. You can legitimize yourself on that. You can profit from that. So you can like you can be like this. You can be like this right-wing person and be like, hey, all of these organizations are seriously like SJW agendas, right? They all have a serious SJW agenda because they have like rainbow flags and things. They have rainbow flags everywhere, and this demonstrates a serious SJW agenda. But they're not really serious about white supremacy, right? They're not really serious about white supremacy. They should be serious about white supremacy. But like they're really not, because you look at all of these laws say that, hey, black people have like affirmative action, right? All of these laws say that this and that, right? Or you can be like a left-wing type and be like, oh, these companies and these governments are so serious about white supremacy. Look at how they treat black people, right? They're so serious about white supremacy. Look at how they like the media vilifies black people, how the government puts black people in jail. Look at all of these things. But like they're not serious about like fucking gay rights or anything. The rainbow flag doesn't mean anything, right? So you have like this this confluence of signals where like companies say that they're for gay rights but really aren't, and governments say that they're for black fucking rights but they really aren't. Or you can take the other approach where you can say like, oh hey, governments say that they're like say that they're for black people and they are, and companies say that they're for like gay rights and they are, and you can just like take either of these approaches. Like both of these I think are just like not really a valid way to see society, I guess. It's all just so dumb, you know, because the government doesn't care about any of your issues. The government doesn't care about any of these issues. The government doesn't care for black people. The government doesn't care about gay people. The government doesn't care about any people. The government only cares about the government. The media only cares about the media, right? And it's just none of it matters. None of it really matters in this way, because the only way you can cure cancer is you can just completely excise it from a system. The only way you can cure cancer is you can completely get rid of it, and you can prevent it from spreading ever. So there's no antiviral solution. You can't criticize the government out of existence. You can't criticize the media out of existence. Like, that's just impossible. They have been on a single trend for 45 minutes. I didn't think that could happen, so this is kind of a special experience, because I could just go on a rant for 45 minutes without any cuts and just completely lose myself in it. I hope I managed to make like some points when it comes to like all of the tangents I went on, because I did go on a lot of tangents, and I hope what I meant to say came through, because I mean, this rant was probably more like 40 minutes, but I haven't had any cuts, because usually when I record a podcast, I have like a lot of cuts in it. I don't do anything in a single take usually. But today I just happened to have like a single really long take, because I stumble on my words a lot. I need to take breaks to think when I'm talking. But today I didn't do any of that, because I know it was fun for me. I hope you had fun too, even though this was like a more negative Gamer Girl ASMR than usual. I didn't really mean it to be negative. I thought I was gonna like have a bunch of positivity. I would come up with positivity, but then I ended up using all of my time to just go on a really long rant. So yeah, and we're out of time now, so check out my live streams, I guess. They're not regular. They might seem regular because they happen 2 Saturdays in a row, but they're not regular live streams. But still check them out. They're gonna happen sometimes. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. See you next time. See you next Monday, because this is happening every Monday.